Namaste, yogis. My name is Alana Kaivalya, and it's an honor to be here with you. In my book, The Myths of the Asanas, I profile one of the most iconic poses in yoga. It's called Padmasana. Padma means lotus, and the lotus flower is an important symbol for yogis. The lotus flower goes through a similar trajectory as we do on our path. It starts as a very hard seed. If you've ever seen a lotus seed, it's a really tough nut to crack. And it gets planted at the very bottom of a really mucky pond. When it sits at the base of this pond in the mud and the water for a while, the water actually softens the shell of the seed. And eventually it takes root. Once it does, it begins to grow up through the mud, through the water, and then it blooms on top of the lake in this beautiful lotus. A little known fact actually is that a true lotus is always pink. This represents the image or the trajectory of a yogi because as we begin our practice, we feel very stuck in the mud. The whole world looks like it's got problems everywhere. We're trying to wade through dirt and it's hard to take root. But once we root ourselves in the practice, we begin to grow a little bit. At first, things will look a little distorted, just as the way a straw looks in a glass of water, the way that the light refracts off the straw and it looks bent. We also look up when we're growing through the water like the lotus. We see the sun or the light above, but it can look misplaced. It can look like it's a little bit off center. As we start to change our perceptions and our understanding of the world, things start to look differently and change. Eventually, when we break through the surface of the water and we bloom fully as yogis, we can see clearly. We can see where the sun is, and of course the sun or light is metaphor for truth in this tradition. Padmasana is renowned as being the best seat for meditation, but it's not accessible to everybody, and we have to be very mindful of the way that our knees work in Padmasana. Our knees have to be really steady and locked because our hips are meant to open in order for us to sit in this posture comfortably for any length of time. So first, to prepare for Padmasana, let's do some hip openers. A good one to start with is ankles to knees pose. So you want your right ankle on top of your left knee and your left ankle underneath your right knee. You'll sit squarely on the floor, and if you have tight hips, your knees may not match the ankles right away. They may look more like this. If your shape looks more like this, you can try either sitting on a block or simply straighten the bottom leg and fold this way. If you have some support with a blanket, you can also place it underneath your thigh, and that will help the hips to open up eventually. When you find yourself in ankles to knees shape, flex the feet, and this helps to protect the knee joints. Inhale as you lift the heart, and exhale, fold forward over your legs. Stay here for a few breaths and keep breathing into the hips, the place that you feel opening. Switch legs, left shin on top. See if you can get the shins to basically be parallel to the front of your mat. Fold forward, and please make any modifications that you did on the other side. Now let's transition to a lying down posture. Hang on to one foot and extend the other leg out onto the ground. In this case, my left leg is up and the back of my right leg will press toward the floor. If it's challenging to grab the left foot, you can always grab the back of the calf or the back of the thigh. We'll bring the leg out to the side, but we'll point the toes toward the floor. The heel will point up, back of the right leg still presses down. Bring the knees to the chest in order to switch the legs. Foot up. In this case, the back of my left thigh will press toward the floor, and my right leg is straight. Once again, I can change the grip from my foot to the back of the calf or the back of the thigh. I'll drop my right leg out to the side and once again point the toes toward the floor with the heel up. Hug the knees into the chest. Come up to a seated position again. Padmasana, bound angle pose. Bring the feet together and bring the feet actually as close into your torso as you can. Allow the knees to fall open. If the knees pop up off the floor quite a bit, just as before, you can sit upon a block or place a blanket underneath your thighs for support. Grab the bottoms of the feet and open them like a book. This helps to actually stabilize the knee joint, and it helps the pelvis to turn in the socket of the hips a little bit better so that you get better opening in the hips. Remember, we're trying to open the hips for Lotus Pose and keep the knees nice and safe. Open the bottoms of the feet, lift the heart, and fold forward. It's not necessary to keep an entirely straight back, but start with the back straight so that the hips stretch more than the lower back. Once you start rounding the back, the stretch migrates into the lower back, and the hips don't get it quite so much. Use your hands to lift your knees up. Now, it may take a little while with those hip stretches to get the hips to where they're ready to try Lotus Pose. You can always start with just one leg. So with the legs straight, try with the right foot. Bring the right foot as high above your right knee as you can. But make sure that before you bring the right foot in, that you've completely bent the knee. This helps to protect the knee. And that way, the stretch will go into the hip instead. So keep the knee completely bent, and then turn the foot, bringing it in towards your belly. It's okay if it doesn't look quite up as high on the hip as it does here, but we just start with this. If the knee pops up off the floor, place a block or a blanket underneath to support, and you can start here. You can even play with folding forward a little bit, working the hip a little bit more open. Now, traditionally in Lotus posture, the right leg is the one that gets crossed first. So let's try that. Right leg first, you can bend the left knee in. Once again, close the knee before you start to pull the foot up and over the right thigh. Once you've got your legs in shape, here you are, ready to meditate just like a yogi. Now this process of working into Lotus posture could take some time, so be patient. One of the hallmarks of yogis is patience, flexibility, and humility. All of these qualities need to be cultivated for a good Lotus posture to eventually develop. Nothing happens when you get Lotus posture either. It's not like a great host of angels descends from the sky and gives a certificate for being an awesome yogi. Don't worry about it. Let the journey be in the hips. Use the breath. Keep your mind focused on the higher goal, and enjoy. Shanti, Shanti.